Yes, hi everybody. My name is Isel. Um, I'm a 15-year procurement veteran, have been doing various things in my previous life. I juggled very different industries and very different roles until I found my passion, which was procurement. And that's where my whole career basically kicked off, and where I started investing a lot of energy and money into educating myself in procurement. Um, did things a little bit backwards to most people. I started off with doing a degree in commerce, and then I did an MBA, and then I came to Australia and then started basically from scratch again with some of my studies and courses and getting through the process in Australia. Been here 13 years now, and it's been quite a journey working in manufacturing and mining industries in procurement, and then went into aged care. And I was basically stuck in aged care for 9 years. And now I'm still in the healthcare industry, but now I'm doing oncology, cancer treatment, procurement. So still staying in the healthcare sector, which is love. I love the healthcare sector very much. But yes, it's been quite an interesting journey. I think I started my journey with CIPS around about 3 years ago. First started off a student, but then only started really doing the course, I think, with Academy Global around 2021, where we really kicked it off in around September. And then it just went from there. It was absolutely lovely. Academy Global was, I mean, Jen, I dealt with you most of the time at the time before you got promoted. But there was significant into the journey of, I didn't understand CIPS. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know where I was going. How does everything work? How do I write exams? And Jen was absolutely pivotal in helping me, guiding me through those processes. And then also our lectors. I don't know who your lector is, helping you, but Ryan Jones was my lector during level 4 from New Zealand, and he was absolutely fantastic. It was really good, and we were a really interactive group of people on the course that went, I think, through the whole journey. There was a few who dropped out in and out between, but I think we were about 2 or 3 people who went through the whole journey in the end of it. But it was really, really fantastic to go through all that. But that's me, a little bit about that journey. I'm still working full-time as well on top of it, and trying to juggle work-life balance as well as studying in between. And yeah, it's been quite a journey. It's not easy by no means.
Thanks, Azelle. That's great, and it's great to hear you had such a positive experience. I guess one of my first questions that comes to mind is, obviously all of us here, we're students of the study centre, so we attend the regular tutorials, and obviously we provide support, so we're always open to, if you have emails with questions, and linking up with tutors and want extra preparation as well. What did you find your schedule looked like, and what was most effective when you were studying outside of the time you spent in the tutorials? And maybe was there anything that you think when you finished your diploma, you thought that would have been good to know, or this technique for studying would have been good for me to apply right from the beginning? Did you, everyone's got a bit of a different study style, but did you find something worked particularly well for you in terms of preparing for your exams?
Yes, definitely. I mean, look, when I did module 1, and I don't know if any on this call is in module 1 at the moment, but when I did module 1, that's where I started off with my journey with studying level 4. And it's obviously the
constructive response one, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. Constructive response exam, where you have to sit and write it for 3 hours, 4 basic questions, and then you have to, each question is 25 marks, and you have to apply what you've learned throughout it. I thought I studied very hard. I read all my course material. I went through all the course notes and the tutor notes and everything, really went through it. I'm quite a methodical person studying. I take chapter by chapter, read it through, make notes, all those sort of things. And one of the things that they keep saying is you have to apply the theory into practical. Now, I'm a practical person because we do procurement every day of my life. I'm a procurement person, right? But what I found hard is how do I take the theory that's in the book and apply it to the case studies or to the questions, because how I do it is very different to what they say I must do. And it's like, yes, didn't go so well in my first exam, I have to say. I barely scraped through. Ask Jen, I was so upset because I just got 51%. I was fuming because I thought I should be in the 70 mark, right? Did not expect this 50% thing. I was absolutely challenging everything. I was throwing my toys out of the cart. But when I went back and I started going through the process, and you get gutted when you get results like that. And I think out of our class, we were only 3 out of 12 who passed. I think several failed the first set. And I sat through this and I went through all the questions again. I went through in my mind, what did I do wrong and stuff? And then I realized, okay, it's not just about the theory, it's not just about your experience, about, okay, you need to actually see what they are asking. One of the key things is that your lectors would constantly nag you on is like when they say describe 5 points, you describe 5 points and you describe it in detail. Anything you can think of what is in that thing you describe. And if it asks you to just mention or name, it's bullet points. But what they look is to make sure that actually everything you've learned, it's bringing it all into the thing, especially with module 1 was mostly about the 13 cycles of procurement, and you go through that and the 5 rights and all those sort of things when you work through the whole process. It's just applying it through all those things and talk about it and how you would go through it. So we would each write it in a different style and a different way, and we interpret questions differently. But what I can say is whatever you've learned in class, your course material that you've got, and then your practice exams is very key. So once I started applying all of that, and I went through practice exams and go through all these things and reading through it and make sure I've got every single module from the Kraljek to the Pareto to whatever module, Porter's 5 course there is, I could apply every module and everything that they were asking about. So you have to make sure you know your models. You have to know how to apply those models in the questions. And that's where Academy Global with Moodle was very helpful. They posted a lot of practice exams in Moodle. The lectors' notes is there. The lectors would have extra case studies in there that we went through how to answer these things. And then in CIPS itself, it had a lot of information that we could use when prepping for exams. They also send out a lot of emails about how to prep for exams and those sort of things, and things you can buy from CIPS that I thought I didn't need it. But let me tell you, I needed it. I bought it. And I'm happy I did, because thereafter it just got better. When I got to level 8, when I got to module 8, where Ivy is now, sitting at, I was very well prepared for that exam, very well prepared. So I was not going to be accepting that 50% mark ever again. So yeah, I was very, very happy. A lot of preparation, a lot of hard work. You have to put it in. I've spent from thinking that I know procurement to actually physically sitting, studying every night for an hour and 2 after work. So I would come home, feed the family, do everything, and then from 8:30 till about 10:30, I would sit and study, go through course materials, read materials, and that. It was only 2 hours a night. Sometimes I pushed to 3 hours a night, depending how exhausted or not exhausted I was. But yes, you have to put in the hard yards in order to achieve those outcomes, because it's not always, we know what we know, but you have to make sure that what they ask you, you can respond to in an exam. So key aspects is reading those course materials, knowing it.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I was just talking to a student the other day, and we were going through, because, they were asking me as well what you can do best to prepare. And I think another good thing, and you mentioned this as well, is just to make sure you're across all the learning outcomes assessment criteria that gets mentioned in the syllabus. So that's really where you want to be referring to when you're making your notes and when you're going back and doing your revision, because all the CIPS questions are going to tie back to the concepts, the models, the frameworks that they mention and that are within your study guide and then called out. So if you do those past papers and you do see the little LO and the AC, just know that that's linking back to the learning outcomes and the assessment criteria within the syllabus. So if then you refer back to that section in the study guide, it's going to tell you what information they're going to be, the markers are going to be looking for in your responses. And as Ella, I think you put that quite well in terms of what sometimes we know, but then sometimes we're not actually addressing the question. So I'd really advise you all when you're sitting your exams to, especially with some of them, because sometimes CIPS will give you a reading or a case study that then they link the question to. So really, sometimes it's best to read that question and then go back and read the facts they've given you in the scenario so that you make sure when you're looking at applying it and looking at the information you need to give in your response, that you're actually addressing what they're asking you in the question. And I know that Shree's uploaded, I think, some of those exam guides for you in Moodle as well. I'd advise you to have a look at those because, like Azelle mentioned, some of the verbs like describe or identify, it will just tell you what you need to do for the response, because that's also an area where some students who are very capable don't do as well as they should have, because they, might just list something when the questions ask you to describe it. So it's really important that you pay close attention to what the question's asking so that that can help you. I guess in terms of techniques too, Azelle, was there anything in particular that helped? I mean, I know you mentioned you did the past papers. Did you refer back to the study guide, highlight certain sections? I think it's important for our students here to know as well that you probably need to do more than just read and passively sit back and look through your notes. You probably need to be a bit more active and test yourself to make sure that you are comfortable when it comes to sitting that exam, because you can't take the resources in with you and it will just be you. And I guess my other question for you, Azelle, is also just around the actual nature of the remotely invigilated exams. Is there any advice you can give people to be prepared? I know, especially because sometimes with IET issues and other things, it can be a bit of a stressful experience. And sometimes that is out of our control with the remote invigilation provider. So if you do have problems on the day, please contact us because we can coordinate with CIPS and help you to get that on track. But I guess in terms of the space available, what you'd recommend, quiet things, any advice you can give to people in terms of IT preparation, anything just for the environment around them when they're sitting that online remotely invigilated exam?
Yeah, no, I think for me is when I started, I went 3 days before the actual exam and test everything. I tested Victor's, because you have to have your mobile phone with a camera facing you as well. And then you have to go onto the online portal that they give you the link that you have to click, and then you give access to the vigilator to see your screen so he can see what you are doing. And then obviously, they then issue you with a code when the exam starts. You log in the code and then you start your exam. It's actually pretty straightforward once you get into it and you know the process and you've done it a couple of times, because it's quite good. I always test Victor's about 3 days before, test everything work. I check the times that they've sent me through, because they sent me an email with the times that is registered with CIPS. I'll check CIPS to make sure I've got the right time, my exams. I have experienced an issue, only one issue I've ever experienced with that last year was I was about to sit the exam. I got the notification. They said to me, "Oh, you're writing at 11 p.m. at night." And I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Something's wrong here. Sent them an email, said, "Are you sure you've got the right time? I've got this time. I'm supposed to sit at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Where do you get 11 p.m.? That doesn't sound right." They came back to me and says, "Oh, no, it's because it's in UK time zone, but it will automatically set right when you start your exam." I'm like, "Hey, if that's what you said." So prepared, sit with them. Victor's went online, got the vigilator. Vigilator got me registered to write the exam and do everything. But somehow the code for me didn't come through to register to log into the exam. The timelines was wrong. I couldn't write the exam at that day. It was a nightmare. We were backwards and forwards with Academy Global and with CIPS and with the invigilators trying to figure out what was going on. So it was quite stressful because you're prepared for this exam, right? You're ready to sit down and then nothing works. So we eventually got it all sorted out. They came back to me, they apologized, and they asked me if I was prepared to sit the next night at 6 p.m. for the exam. They'll have it all ready and set. Seeing that the next day I was writing another exam anyway in the morning. So I literally wrote exam, had a 2-hour break, and then wrote the second exam. And I said it's fine because I was prepared for the exam anyway. So it was fine. I normally do 2 exams at a time. When I do my courses. So it was perfect. It worked out well, and it did go very well. It did go very smooth once it was sorted out. But yeah, it was a struggle. Even if I've tested it, even when I did question them about the times 2 days beforehand, it still didn't work out. Something still went wrong. But that was the first and last time I ever had an issue with that. After that, I've never had an issue again with my exams. And it went very well. The environment is they ask you always the same questions. Please, can you show the camera around your room? You're not allowed to have any papers on it. You have to make sure everything is clear. You have to make sure you remove everything from the room. And things like that. So I had to go through this whole process with them, and then when they were satisfied, we would start the exam. But yeah, it's quite a process, but it's really, really good. It's very well organized for me when I write exam with them. I haven't had any issues with them.
Yeah, thanks, Azelle. And yeah, to that point, everyone, if you haven't already sat an exam, I mean, if you have, you're probably aware, CIPS do use a third-party remote invigilation provider. So if you do have any issues, please check in advance, at least I'd say at least 5 days before. And if you don't have an email or you don't have something, please let Shree or myself know as soon as you become aware of that, so that we can escalate it to the right people, because it's the last thing you want to have to do. I mean, don't worry, because we'll help you every step of the way, and I don't want you to be stressed before you sit your exam, but you don't want to leave it to the last minute and then suddenly log on, when you're supposed to be sitting your exam in half an hour's time and find out that there's something missing, or you don't have the right piece of software or something like that. So please do make sure you check well in advance of your exam time. Yeah, another thing I'd just like to ask you, Azelle, in terms of how many exams to sit. I think you mentioned you usually did 2 exams per exam period. Is that something you did since your initial exam, and based on how you found the time you'd need to put into preparation along with working full time?
So no, so when I started off, I only did the level 1, the module 1, as my initial first exam, just because it was a constructive response exam. It required a lot of learning, and you had to do a lot more with the others 6 modules thereafter, which was the multiple choice response type exams. They were a little bit easier. Still have to do a lot of preparation, but not to give bad habits, but sometimes you could just guess some of those answers based on experience and knowledge. But it is still, you still have to study for it, but you don't have to think about writing, about grammar, about language, about how do I put it in context, how will they make it understand. Those were much more easier exams to pass through. And I could do 2 or 3 of them at the time. I think my second exam sitting, I did 3 exams. And then I did 2 exams, and then I wrote level 8 and module 8 and module 7 was the last exams I put together. But it was actually quite easy to go through it. So once you got into it and you actually start doing it, it was really good. What helps me, I'm a visual type person. So with anything that we did, I love our classes, the lecture classes, attended all the classes, read the recordings, listened to what people said, read the lecturer's notes, because it makes me more visual. I hate reading. I absolutely hate reading. I don't have time to read. But, I scan and make notes and make comments and things like that. And where I think it's important, I would flag it to say, okay, make sure you know this, make sure you know that. So things are very easy to spot in a module to what would be important in today's time. As you'll Modern slavery is a pretty important one. It always comes up in every single exam I did. So there's always questions about modern slavery. Make sure you know those sort of stuff. I'm not going to give you tips about the stuff because I don't want to say, as Al said, that this is going to be in my exam. No, just please know. There's that sort of things that you would go through as you go through it to know what to look out for. When you see a consistent theme coming through nearly every module, then you know, okay, this is important.
Yeah, I guess to that as well, if everyone usually CIPS, that, like as I just mentioned, there will be things that get called out commonly. Obviously, modern slavery is one of them. I think some of the stuff on the ethics is quite important and comes through in all of them as well. So if you do notice some key themes, and as you're sitting your exams, it might be that you need to focus on that area. I think the study guides also call out some particular notes where it's like focus, or this is a key point, and that's always a bit of a key into, yeah, this is an area where you probably will get tested on it, and it'll be an area of focus. You should have access. There is a CIPS knowledge area as yep, you go, Azelle. I can see you want to make a comment here.
No, sorry. So one of the key things is also that I did was in CIPS knowledge in the intelligence hub, a part of CIPS.
Yep.
They've got a thing called knowledge archive. If you go in there, they've got a whole list from A to Z, hundreds of documents on different processes, information that could help you with everything that's relevant to every subject that is relating to procurement. It's very easy to go in there, read it. It's normally about 3-4 pages long. It's not long reading. It's quite interesting, where they just give tips and information about a certain specific subject. So I can share my screen quickly to show.
Yeah, that would be great, Azelle. Why don't you do that? Yeah, because I was going to call that out. It's often an area where you'll see that the exams often use this as a basis for some of the questions, and it will tie in. So I would definitely advise you to have a look through and visit this in your preparation and when you're doing your revision for your exams.
Yeah.
Yep,
Can you all
great.
see my CIPS?
Yep, that's perfect. Thanks, Azelle.
So it's in the intelligence hub there. You've got key themes here that you can go on. Ethics is big one. This is where they just give you different courses you can do as a CIPS member, which is free of charge to us. I've done the ethics course. I've also done negotiations. There's a few in here that you can go and do where they can give you a lot of information. Just see if it's going to go open up. I hope my thing open up. Yeah, so why ethics important procurement professionals, and they give you lots of information in here, which is really good to go and read through it. And then I went and read through ethical procurement and procurement audits and ethical property. Where it was relevant to a course or to one of the modules, I would read it. But the knowledge archive here, there, it gives you information about everything. So if you do, there's information about Brexit, procurement category, business travel. They talk about carbon. So this is some additional information that you could just brush up on that goes hand in hand with your studies. What the study material, your course material also tells you is that they make reference to a certain link, or they make reference to a certain article or to a certain thing. I normally look it up to see what they're talking about. Why are they making reference to something? So it's always good to, if you need to go in here, they've got a whole everything from, it goes down hundreds and thousands of documents. Obviously you can't read everything, but what I did find was handy for me in my own personal job as well is just revising through the documents they would provide to help to understand some of the theory we are being taught in CIPS and in our information, or with exams and stuff when I did preparations.
That's great as well. And in the constructed response questions, what did you find was most helpful when you're talking about applying the knowledge, and in cases where they're asking for examples? How would you recommend students best go about answering those questions, or how did you find what got you better results when you were in terms of your approach to attacking those questions?
Well, sometimes it's hard because you're not allowed to have pen and paper in the room with you, right? And you can't jot down your thoughts on a piece of paper and write down what you think. But what they have on the exams is they had a little where you can make comments and notes and you could write stuff down. So what I did was I typed down the bullet points that I was thinking it should be, and then I structured the question to how they wanted me to answer. So first thoughts were, okay, what are they asking me? What did it relate to? And then in my head, I could see, okay, 13 cycles of the procurement life cycle. And then I dropped down all 13 of them and I say, okay, which ones apply here? What are they asking for? And then I could pick from there what each one was, or each one was relevant to whichever section. So it's just about making sure in your head you've got a process, but put it down while you're typing, just put it down, just type it down and then structure it and word it and change it and move it. Spend the time on fixing it. Don't think you just have to go in them and answer the question. Workshop and brainstorm your thoughts, even in the paper, and just write it down so you have everything there, and then structure it to the questions they ask, because that helps a lot. It helps to just get your mindset in the right frame to answer that question.
And do you have any tips on time management during the exams, both the multiple choice ones and the long response ones?
The long response ones, when it's 4 questions and each question is 25 points and you get 3 hours, break it up to 45 minutes per question. But what I normally do is I spend 10 minutes understanding the question, jotting down the bullet points, understanding it. And I spend 20 minutes restructuring it, answering the question, reading the question again, making sure that I match everything up. And then I do it for each question, half an hour. And then the last 40 minutes or so, I go back and I review each one just to make sure I have addressed what I needed to address, because you might get through to question 3 and then you realize, oh, but hang on, I forgot something in question 1. So I go back. Just make sure your thoughts are methodical when you do your questions. Read each question very carefully. Take the time to analyze the question, and if you've got enough time to finish the exam. The multiple choice type questions, they are pretty easy. They are 1.5-hour exams. Normally go through and finish them in 15 minutes to an hour. You normally finish them quite fast, because there's not really much to do, but just understand what they ask you there as well, because they can trick you in multiple choice questions as well. You have to understand if they say to you, please give 2 answers, or please pick 3, pick 3. Read that they ask you, do you pick 1 or do you pick 3? So you have to know which ones to pick. And then sometimes their wording is a little bit different, but it's almost the same thing. And if you pick the wrong one, that's when you get penalized. So read the questions very carefully and hear what they're asking you to pick, and then make sure you pick the right ones, because they can give you 4 answers and they pull very, very similar answers, but only one answer could be right. So you have to also listen to what they ask and how they phrase and frame the answer in multiple choice, so you pick the right one.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to note. I guess another thing is, if you do find, you're stuck on a question, maybe I think there is the ability, you can flag it, can't you? And also come back to it at the end using the things. So make sure you do the demo on the software for the remote invigilator, just so you can test that out before you sit your actual exam. And that'll give you access to write notes as well. Like Azelle mentioned, for the long response one, you can do a bit of a brainstorm and get your thoughts together before you actually need to construct your response as well. So that will help you. What I might do now is just open it up to if anyone else has any particular questions they have. As I said, this is a great opportunity to speak to someone who's been through it and come out the other side. So, if anyone has some questions, I'd love to hear it. Feel free. We're in a small group. Just if you want to take yourself off mute. I think, Ash, have you got a first question?
Yeah. Hi, Azelle.
Hey, Ash.
Nice meeting you, and thanks for sharing your experience. I just wanted to know, as you explained, that I've got the similar challenge, full-time work, very demanding work, personal life and everything, and I'm just trying to do that. We got the tutor notes, right? I'm attending the classes. In fact, some of the classes I could not attend fully, so I'm just catching up with the recording. Now, there are CIPS ebooks. So when I go through like the tutor notes, I also try to look into the CIPS ebook, but the CIPS ebook is quite extensive. It's very detailed, right? To what extent you find the ebooks are effective? Like, the whole book is good, but the thing is that to what extent you need to work on, what we need to work on to get the best out of it, rather than focusing on each and every points that what's coming out as a highlight from the tutor notes.
That's an interesting one, Ash, because that is one of the mistakes I made when I did module 1, right? I went on the tutor notes thinking that we covered everything that's in the books. I only browsed through the ebook. It's like, oh, yeah, that's okay. Yes, I know that, read through it, once or twice. Yeah, happy days, I'm going to write my exam. Yeah, got the shock of my life. So one of the best things I can tell you, Ash, is spend the time reading. Take every night, maybe, or a weekend, just a chapter, because there's 4 chapters in each ebook, right? Just take a chapter, read through it, and make a highlight. What I did is, probably illegal, I should not say this, right? But because it's an ebook, I didn't buy the physical book because it takes forever to come from the UK.
Yeah.
I was a bit naughty. I spent time through the ebook, and I did the snippet of each and every single page and pasted in Word. Then I went and I print out the book, and then I sat with the book with a highlighter and notepads and all sort of things. And then I went through it, and then I highlighted and put a sticker in there. And I'm like, okay, this is where that is. Okay, I must read that. Took the tutor's material as well, and I then cross-referenced. But one of the things I found with your tutor materials is that they cover some of the things that is important, but has missed 2 or 3 very important aspects as well. And I found that out the hard way, because I thought, oh, what the teacher teach me, the exam preparation papers I used on previous questions they've asked, it's all sorted. And then they threw a curveball and they asked a total question I did not study for in the last chapter of module 1. Could not answer it, lost 25 marks just on that. But I thought that I'll be good because I've done very well on the other 3 questions, which I knew very well, but obviously not that well, so I was penalized. So key thing is read every chapter. You don't need to read it in too much detail, but flag the things that's important, what you've covered in your course material, what you've seen in exam preparations, and then what is not covered in the tutor notes and what's not covered in a previous exam. See what it is and be familiar with that, because 9 out of 10 times that's the question they're going to ask you, not the ones that the tutor covered or what's in the previous exams. They might ask you a different one. So that's the best I can give you. You have to put in the hard yarns in order to get out and pass these exams.
Okay, excellent. And just one other thing that I think in Moodle, every week there are certain focus, subject or the areas that we look into it. Have you found they were they were useful, that just in case if I cannot go through the ebook, or if I go through the ebook on a fast pace, but I come back to the Moodle and then just pick up, that every week they have got the highlighted the topics that it's covered. Do you find that's also doable?
Yes and no. It's doable in certain aspects, Ash, but as I mentioned before, I'll give you a perfect example. What happened with me is when I missed out one of the parts is they ask a question about the difference between the public and private sector in procurement using a certain model or whatever. which was covered in chapter 4, which I read chapter 4, for example. But that part I just browsed through because I don't think it was important, and that's the question they nailed me on, or what they asked me, and I got my public and private sectors mixed up because some of the wording and language they use in the ebook, they're actually looking for the exam marker is looking for when you write it. They want you to know that you know and you understand what the difference is between these two. Might have not been covered in your tutor notes, but it's in the ebook. And that's where you lose marks, and that's where you easily, your marks goes downwards. So I would rather say, yes, it's good to have your tutor notes, but I honestly go by the ebook. Really honestly.
Yeah.
Read your ebook, study your ebook, look what's in your ebook, write down the stuff in your ebook. Your ebook is very important because 9 out of 10 times your questions comes out of the ebook. Your tutor is covering some of the basic stuff that comes out of the ebook and highlight some of the things, but don't go on just the tutor notes. Don't go on just the exam papers that you practice with, the practice papers. Honestly, read your ebook. I can't stress that more because that's the mistake I made with module 1. Didn't do that again. I managed to fly through all the other modules and managed to get out and got my diploma. So I'm very happy, really honestly.
Thank you. Sorry, I'll just take one more quick one. You can answer in a level. So in terms of the timing you said during the exam, right? Because when it's a question deep, like, you know, let's say describe, but the question itself it's impromptu actually pushing you to think a bit more. I know everyone has a different style of, you know, looking at a question and just prepare. Is it on, like, you know, average, does it give enough time for you to at least understand the question, have a bit of prep, and then start writing things?
Yes. So what I've mentioned is that when I look at a question to write it, especially when you write the questions, you take about 10 minutes to read the question, prep it in your mind, write the bullet points down, try to formulate, okay, what are they asking me, and just put the bullet points down based on the question. And then you build on that. Then you go back and you see, okay, what is it relating to the case study? Okay, so what do I need to say? And you take your bullet points and then you formulate your answer at the end. And it take about 20 minutes to do that. And then you take the last 10 minutes to revise and change it and things like that. You have plenty of time to write it, but I think I can't stress it more. You have to know your course material. Otherwise, you will struggle. Otherwise, you're not going to get through all your questions and you're not going to answer it properly, and you're going to feel that you don't know what is going on and feel uncomfortable when you walk out of the exams. Preparation, reading, knowing the course material, ebooks, yes, absolutely vital. It is hard, Ash, I know, being you know, a family person, working full time, coming home. I just got home just before we joined at 6 o'clock. I have to study because I'm writing exams on the 17th of May. So you have to invest the time in yourself. It's short. Trust me, it feels long, but it's short-lived. Invest that time in yourself because you will absolutely pick the fruits of your labor.
Okay, no worries. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'll just zip up now.
Thanks, Ash, and thanks, Azelle. So who wants to be next? Who's got another question? And call out to the group. Any other things you can think of as you're going into the exams? Oh, Guli, I think you've got one. Great.
Hi, Azelle. Thank you so much. And I couldn't agree more. I think reading all the chapters is very necessary. Just a question. Have you used anything from YouTube? Any channels helped you in preparation at all for your exams?
Actually, no, I haven't actually looked at YouTube or anything like that. It gets overwhelming the more you try to do research into your exams, right? I tried to stick to the basic things with the ebook and then the CIPS Hub, Intelligence Hub, with some of the articles they have there, and look at some of the, the exam preparation papers. You can so easily get lost when you start to deep dive too much into other forms of information, and it can really throw you off the actual topic of your subject that you are writing about. So I would highly recommend, Julie. It's good to see what YouTube has to offer, but maybe, the ebook, the information they give you, that is probably the key thing to look. And also, what I found when I start reading my ebooks is that, well, actually that makes sense in my work that I do. Oh yeah, I can apply that here. It's just common knowledge, common sense stuff that you do know. But sometimes we forget about the theory part of it, right? Because we practice it every day in our procurement work activities. But you'll see it then becomes natural.
Thank you. Just last question from me. Can you describe your morning before the exams? Do you take half of your day off, or what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm one of those people. I like to be prepared and relax a little bit. So I take 2 days off. I take the day before I write exam off, and the day I'm writing exam, I take off the day off, just because the day before I need to get my headspace right for exams. It's normally when I go exercise a bit, clear my head. I'm also a firm believer of meditation. So, just to get my headspace right, then I sit and go through my course material again, read through the chapters again, make notes, see if I've missed anything. Normally, by the time I get to exams, I'm pretty well versed in my course material. So it's the last 2 days are just basically a recap of things and getting myself into that mind frame and relax, not thinking about work and about, oh, I'm supposed to do this or I'm supposed to do that, because the worst thing can happen is you write exam and you forgot to do something at work and your mind wanders. You need to be having yourself in your exam zone. And then the day I write exam, I'm prepared, I'm ready. That's normally when the panic starts kicking in a little bit, like an hour before I actually write exams. It's like, oh, do I know my work? Have I studied enough? And then you just sit and you just trust yourself. And you just say, well, I know this stuff, I can do this stuff, and then you just go for it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, Gulin. Thanks, Azelle. Any more questions? Yep, Joe.
Hi, Azelle. Thank you for your information. That's really, really helpful. I'm just wondering, from the time you start a module through to exam day, how many weeks or months would you put into it?
Yeah, so it's a tricky one, because a month or 2 months before the exams, you don't really spend every day studying. I might do an hour reading here, half an hour there, whatever. I really start deep diving into the exams about 2 weeks before an exam, where I really then go into 2-3 hours a night, every night on exams. I give myself a break over the weekends, because that's family time for me. A weekend, that's when I spend time with my family. Then I don't do any studying unless I absolutely feel I have to. But during the week, I put the half times in the week, because, kids go to bed, people go sleep. And that's when I really start digging into it, and I can spend the time concentrating on it. It's exhausting. It is. I know, because I get up 5 o'clock every morning, the next morning to go to work and all that sort of stuff. So it does take a lot of energy out of you. But as I said, I just go deep in the last 2 weeks before an exam.
Oh, perfect. And then one other question, with multiple choice questions, what happens if, say, you have to choose 2 possible answers and you're really confident on one, but not totally confident on the other? Perhaps I've heard about eliminating, what is definitely not the case. So you start to eliminate, what couldn't possibly be the answer. But do you have any other sort of recommendations?
Yeah, I think I've got stuck quite a few times on those things where I would know one definite answer, but then they throw me on the other three answers because the three choices they give you, because as I said, it's very similar. I have to read and read and read the question over and over again to see actually what are they asking me? What do they want from me? Now, and just make sure one, I pick the right one. Sometimes it's a gamble. Sometimes it's like, okay, 50-50 coin toss. Which one am I going to go for? Because I really don't know the answer. And then hope I hit it. And then you miss. So, and then you lose a point for that. Or half a point, however they mark it up. But what they do is they're very tricky when they give you things. They'll say to you something like, should you not have this in place, then we do this, or should you have this in place? And then it's this. And then you think, okay, so it should not or should? Should I have this or should I not have this? And then you're like, okay, but the outcome is the same. Which one is it, yes or no? That they would ask you. And that's where the tricky part comes in, where you just have to try to read it and hope that you answer it right when you're unsure.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Jo. Anyone for the next question?
I have one.
Yep.
This is a question to both of Jen and also Isel. How long roughly for Diploma Level 4 to be completed for an average, like stats?
I'll let you go first on your experience, Isel, and then I can give some overview of a lot of our past students.
So for me, my aim is to finish a diploma in 12 months, which I did. I finished it in 12 months, level 4. I'm doing now level 5, and I'm going strong. I'm now on module 3, and I'm just exhausted. And I don't know if I'm going to finish in 12 months. I think I'll extend it to 18 months rather than 12, because it becomes a little bit more difficult and a little bit more intense, which I found it's like quite more intense than level 4. But you just have to pace yourself. What is your capabilities, and just push through. For me, there's probably no fixed timeline. If it's going to take you 12 months, 18 months, or 2 years, you have to pace yourself, because you also have to work around your schedule, your family schedule, and things. If you can do one exam every time this exam period instead of 2 or 3, then just do one. Give yourself the time to go through it. It also depends, I guess, on how can I put it, who's paying for it. If your company is paying for your education and they've got an expectation that you have to finish it in a certain period, that normally drives that. In my case, this is something I invested in myself, so I pay for everything myself. I refuse my company to pay for it, even though they've offered, because it's an investment in myself, and that's for me a driving factor, because then I know I have to achieve it, otherwise I waste my own money. And that's where my driving factor comes in to make my achievements. It's a motivator for me when I pay for it myself, because it's important to me to invest in myself, to promote myself, because that helps.
Great, thank you.
Jane.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, so I mean, I second everything Isel said about, it is to your own time frame. Certainly something we say that you can do is complete within 12 months, and that's for people like in Isel's case, working full time. It does depend on the amount of time you can commit to study outside your other commitments. So for other people, it might work better to do it over 18 months, depending on how many you can get through. And I would say you probably get a better feel as well after you sit your first exam and then get the results and process that and look back and reflect on how much you studied and how much you're able to keep doing, to then advise you on whether you can do a couple more exams, because obviously there's no limit to how many you can do. It's only really going to be limited by your own commitments and how you schedule your life really as well. But it's not a sign of failure to have to extend it a bit, because everyone's got other things in life that gets in the way as well. But I would say I think it's important to set a goal. So if you want to complete in a certain amount of time, maybe set that as your goal and then work to that in terms of how much you'll need to study, when you'll need to sit your exams in line with when CIPS run the centrally conducted exams as well. And yeah, it will depend a bit on your drivers. So yeah, if it is your employer, you are going to be guided by that. If you have any specific questions in regards to your own situation, reach out to us, because we can advise you, because you know that we've had a lot of students, we've probably had a similar experience with someone having a similar issue, or think they might have to drop out for a little bit but then come back a bit later, and that's always something you can do as well. But certainly if you are wanting to work to a goal, 12 months is definitely doable.
One other
Great,
thing,
thank you.
sorry, I forgot
Yeah, you go
to
there.
say, one thing that I've learned going through the steps with level 4 is I started at module 1 and I went methodically module 2, module 3, module 4, module 5. I have seen in previous situations where people started module 8 or they started a different module. What I found is when I go through it methodical module 1, module 2, module 3, you start learning this stuff, and then what you've learned in module 1 and 2 keeps getting through in module 3 and then in module 4. By the time I got to module 8 covers all the other 7 modules. It basically covered everything. So you are very well prepared when you get to module 8. And that's why, you know, it's important to always start at module 1, because it sets the scene for all the other modules when you go through it. So by the time you get to the end, you're very well versed in everything, you know everything. Module 8 is actually a breeze to go through, and I did very well in module 8. Not like super, like I wanted to do better, but I didn't do 50%. Let me tell you that. I did a hell of a lot better than that. But it does set the scene. It does help you go through it. So just a pointer if that's what you're thinking of doing.
Yeah, I was going to say that's definitely our advice, is to end with L4 M8. So leave that one till last, just because, yeah, as Azelle said, it ties everything together. You'll be able to build off all the knowledge you've gained throughout the other modules. So it just makes sense to do that one at the end.
I think most of us are doing it as of next week, or yeah, as of 15th or 14th.
Right, okay. And how many modules have you been through so far, apart from the L4 M8?
L4 M1 and L4 M7.
Okay.
So 2.
Yep. Okay. It might even be worth me having a little session. I'll take to Sri about what we can do as well, because there might be some advice we can give just around that as well, into how to sit the exam. Because I mean, at least you'll be coming from having done the 1st and the 7th, but it will help just to have a bit of information and probably a bit of prep as well. So leave that with me. I'll help you out there as well.
Thanks, Jen.
Alrighty, we've still got a bit of time, just 4 minutes, just for any final questions while we're still here. I think Ash, you might have another one.
Yeah, I'll just go another one. Azelle is full of, like, you know, I mean, tips.
I know,
Maybe we will probably have another session before the exam. No, I'm just joking. So in terms of the, like, you know, when it's a descriptive, you know, response that you need to do, they say that describe this. In the ebook, the way a topic is explained, because it's quite detailed, right? To what percentage of that explanation that they would expect in the exam, that when someone is writing the exam? Is it like, let's say a particular topic has got 3 bullet points, and then you have to expand on each one of them? Just wanted to know to what extent, because again, everyone has a different typing speed, thinking speed, and putting it together. So is it like, you know, the core theme, as long as it's there, then it's okay? Or they really look into detail that you make sure that you write enough?
They don't want how can I put it to you? They don't want you to quote it word for word, basically out of the textbook, right?
Yeah.
So you need to know the bullet points, and you need to be able to interpret what they are saying in your own words, but apply to the case study. So if they ask you a question, or they give you a case study and then ask you the question, and you know that it's the 5 rights of procurement, you know, price, purchase, you know, all those sort of things that you go through, you will then have to explain it using the case study and refer it back to the case study and make mention to it, you know, in the situation with X, Y, Z, you know, plumbing that has this, and they are looking at the price variations, you know, those sort of things.
Yeah,
you have to apply the theory to the case study. So know the theory, but you don't have to know it like a parrot, you know, if I could put it to you this way. Know the theory, read through it, have your bullet points and summarize it in your own mind how you understand it as well, because that's also important. The way you understand it and then apply to the case study helps. The examiners, when they mark it, they sometimes don't always understand how you would interpret things, which is sometimes where, you know, you would lose marks. But it's back to the theory. If you've applied the basic theory to what they've asked, they do read to what you write and they will mark it accordingly to what they look for, as long as you've covered the basic things that they want in that describe things, keywords. When they say describe price, you need to make mention of the price and refer back to the pricing sort of things and you know, so I talk about contracts and all those sort of things. I can't think of exact examples now, so put on the spot there. But yes, just make sure that you feed it back to the case study. You can know the theory and you can write it all down, but you have to then make sure that you write it to what the case study is asking you.
Okay, thank you, much appreciated.
All right, any final comments, questions, last chance to get in your final little bit of wisdom from Azelle?
I got one. To become an MSIP member, do we have to complete the entire level and then also sit the exam of the CIPS codes and conducts?
That's a question for Jen.
Yes, I was just going to say it is part of your ongoing membership, I believe, to continue to do that. I will just reference the guidance, so I'll send it out to you all following this meeting just on that as well. But it's not for the diploma, but yeah, that's just the general membership and MSIPS status, I believe. Yeah.
To be an MSIP, oh, sorry.
No, you go, Ivy.
Yeah, I just got confused. To be an MSIP member, is it just we don't even have to complete an exam, but as long as we have the membership, we can be called MSIP, or we have to have some sort of qualification, pass the exams, then we are qualified as MSIPs.
So the MSIPS designation is different to being a member with CIPS. So you are all student members with CIPS currently. What the MSIPS designation is something you get once you've achieved the professional qualifications through the CIPS pathway. So as you progress and move to the next level, you get closer to then getting your MSIPS once you achieve them. So the MSIPS is the chartered status. That's when you get to use the post-nominals MSIPS. When you do your diploma, your advanced diploma, and then your professional diploma, then you will get your MSIPS. But it's really the kind of equivalent of having completed the qualification stream. So it's not just paying your membership, it's actually once you've completed. What you do get when you've completed your diploma is you get CIPS diploma level membership. So it is something that's referenced on your membership, and you can say and mention that you are a CIPS diploma graduate and CIPS diploma level member as well.
Yeah, so to become an MSIPS, you have to complete the professional level of diploma. So it's a 3 levels.
Yeah. So the diploma is the highest entry level qualification. So that's what we advise most people who are working in procurement to start with. So they start at the diploma level, then you progress, like Azelle's now at the advanced diploma, and then if you do then your professional one, you will get your MSIPS.
Great, thank you.
And I think it's FSIPS. What is it when you get FSIPS? It's when you do a whole lot of other stuff. You have to get little credit points and you have to keep your ethics up to date every year. You have to do the ethics exams to keep your qualifications up, right?
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, the FSIPS is the fellow with CIPS, and as Azelle mentioned, you have to do continuing professional development, so CPD, attending events, doing the CIPS ethics certificate and some other things. I can give you some further information on that post this event as well. But yeah, it is something that is expected to continue, and that's like your MSIP status as well. So I think you're expected to do the ethics certificate every year just to keep that renewed and current, and it's just part of your continual professional development. It's not anything on the level of doing CIPS qualifications again at all. It's just continuing professional development. So they're just continual activities to keep your commitment and chartered status current.
Great, thank you both so much.
No worries. Well, that kind of brings us to a little over time. So I don't want to take up any more of your time or Azel's time tonight. But Azel, that's been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been really insightful, and it's great to get a perspective from another student, because you're someone who's actually been through it. So it's been wonderful to have you here. And thank you everyone for joining and all your questions. I hope you got a lot of value out of this. As your study centre, we're always here to support you. So if you do have any questions, reach out to Sri or reach out to me, and we'll be there to help you along the way. The exams are coming up, so I wish you the best of luck. I think Azel's given you a lot of tips to work with, so I think you should be pretty well set. But yeah, we're here as well. So best wishes. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Azel.